So we have the 6 part-time workers that are rostered 24 hours a day to work with the concierge, and as we're getting a nurse with a partnership with the Mater and St Vincent's.
We touched on it very quickly. So we had some air studies done that actually demonstrated that the corridor sucks the air through the unit. So you could just turn it down.
So all the units have the same features regardless of their size.
Yeah. As Minister for Housing and Homelessness, these types of days are days you never forget and you never want to forget, because this is the realisation of great effort. But how does it come to this, that we're standing here and in this magnificent complex? Well, I think it comes about as a result of some significant decisions, and that's why I think it's entirely apt that the member for Griffiths, Kevin Rudd, is here with us today. It just so happens also to be within his electorate, because the federal government had to make some economic decisions to save this country from recession or worse some years ago, and it did so investing taxpayers' money to create and to protect literally hundreds of thousands of jobs and many, many businesses. But the other thing, the other dimension that's not always talked about, is the values behind where that money was to be spent. And the decision of the government at the time was to spend it in areas of education and social housing. And this complex is an example of, this is the consequence, if you like, of the decision made to invest almost $6 billion at the federal level in social housing so we can look after those people less fortunate than most of us. This was also, of course, to ensure that we continued on to realise the very ambitious but still realisable goal of cutting the rate of homelessness in this country by 2020 by half, and also allowing opportunities for people that sleep rough to get temporary accommodation. Two definitely tough, challenging goals, but ones that can be realisable, and ones that have been achieved elsewhere in a place called Finland, which I had the great fortune of being recently, where they've literally done that. So why are we here today? We're here to celebrate this magnificent amenity. We're here to, I think, highlight that through the efforts of all of the partners to this project, we will see people who were sleeping rough or at the risk of being homeless or actually homeless finding decent accommodation for them, in some cases for the very first time. And this particular model, the common ground model, is in my view a recipe for success. What it says is that we need to ensure that we accommodate people sustainably and attend to their other needs as we do so. If we do not do that, then we're on the constant churn of providing services, well-meaning and in many cases very good, dedicated people providing those services, but to the same people year in, year out. Well, this allows us, this is an example of us finding a way to break that cycle of homelessness. And this is also an opportunity to prevent homelessness happening in the first place. So the two key planks, I think, that provide an opportunity for us to reach those goals I mentioned is preventing homelessness and preventing the recycling of people through homeless services. And the common ground approach, I think, is certainly one way we can do that. And so everybody that's been involved, all the partners, and I look to Caroline from Grocon, who have put in the construction, have put in all of their expertise and their effort at cost, no profit whatsoever from that company. From all of the other partners, with the state government putting in the resources to complete this magnificent complex, we are here today to formally open it. Can I say on behalf of the federal government, we will continue to dedicate resources to making housing more affordable. We will continue to dedicate and invest in social housing because it's absolutely necessary. It's what good governments do. And we believe that by doing so, and in the time we've been elected since 2007, we've invested $20 billion in making housing more affordable and providing services more effectively for people who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. If we continue to do that, then I believe that the people who are on our margins, the people who sometimes find themselves homeless through no fault of their own, will find themselves part of a family, part of a community where they belong. And as I say, and I've said before, it is entirely unacceptable that people in this country, this wealthy country, do not or are not afforded that opportunity to be in their own space, in a place they can call home, in a place from which they can get the services they may need, and ultimately get access to training and education, if that's the position they're in, and ultimately get a job. They're the sort of things that most people aspire to through a number of reasons, some in many cases unforeseen. People do not always find themselves in that position. Well, this magnificent complex provides people in 146 dwellings that opportunity, half of whom, as I say, are within that category of being either at risk of homeless or at one time being homeless. And I think this is a magnificent exemplar for governments and for partners with companies and the not-for-profit sector. It really says what we can do if we put our minds to it and we put the money where it should go. So I thank you for inviting me here today. I thank you for attending, for being at this very important ceremony or this celebration of this magnificent facility. And let's hope this is one of many that we will see in Brisbane in the coming years, because in my view, this is certainly one clear way we can do the right thing for all Australians that need our help. Thank you very much.
The challenge of meeting the needs of people who are homeless, at risk of homeless, that are vulnerable, people who run into problems generally not of their own making, sometimes of their own making, it doesn't matter. We should be striving to assist people in all those circumstances, and whether that be a physical disability, a mental health issue, whether it's just unfortunate times. You know, we have some challenges in this state with a very substantial number of children every year that reach the age of 18 and leave care, who've been in care of the state and then leave that at the age of 18. We have significant issues with people who, through no fault of their own, are victims of things like domestic violence, and that is frequently associated with homelessness and certainly great stress in housing. So this model of common ground, which, as we've heard, emanated from New York, this is the fourth example of it in a major city in Australia, is based around principles which I won't go into at length because many people in this room would know a lot more than I do, but it recognises the fact that it is not just about putting a roof over people's head. People have become homeless because of the various risk factors, which might be physical disability, it might be intellectual impairment, it might be a mental health issue, it might be just their life circumstances or their background, but they need other forms of support that build their capacity to look after and develop and maintain a tenancy and support their own housing. So the success of this project here will be measured in the way it builds the capacity of people who pass through the doors here to go on and be more capable, sustain their own tenancies, in many cases I hope sustain employment, and put behind them what in many cases have been very challenging pasts. We're looking particularly keenly in Queensland because, as some of you may have noted, I've already made an announcement about how we propose to redevelop public housing in this state. There's a significant issue which is reflected in the need for this facility, that in the past we housed people because they were low income. That's what the Housing Commission years ago was set up to do. Increasingly, public housing is for people with very high needs, people who need more than just a roof over their head. So in our proposal, our pilot scheme has been announced for the City of Logan, which reflects many of the problems that public housing faces, including the effect of density on the local community, the lack of appropriate accommodation where we can deliver specialised support. So we have a particular interest in the success and learning the lessons that I have no doubt will be learned here. The building itself, 146 units, they have been specially designed for the people who they will cater for, and to provide the services that they need, and things like the ventilation system, the public space that encourages people not to sit at home, not to sit in your unit, although it'd be pretty hard to get yourself off some of those balconies out there with a view of the city. I'm hoping for an invite if any of the tenants are here for river fire. But there are a lot of facilities thoughtfully put into this building that will encourage people to join with their fellow tenants. There is a common ground. I've had a very sensible approach to tenancy mix. It is important to have a mix of tenants and to have those tenants engage with each other. So I think it's a very, very exciting program. I want to extend my congratulations and my very sincere best wishes for the results that come from this to Common Ground and to Micah, and my thanks to those that have made it happen, and I think that you will make a very significant contribution to improving the lives and future of many, many people here in this city. Thank you.
Today is a very good day. Sometimes in politics we have bad days. But you know something, today is a really good day. We're celebrating how broken lives can fundamentally be changed for the better. We're celebrating how this can be done in a practical way by providing a secure place that people can call home. And we're celebrating that how through government leadership and with community engagement and with corporate support, we can make it practically happen. That's why today is such a good day. Not only can we make a difference in the lives of broken people, but here we have made a difference. 146 differences. That is not a simple drop in the ocean. Real changes, real opportunities for real people, our brothers and sisters in our common human family. Ultimately, friends, this is always a question about our values and what we value most. It's a question also of our priorities, and then it's a question of whether we're prepared to roll up our sleeves and make practical things happen, rather than just bleat permanently about a problem, or to make unctuous statements about social justice and then do nothing about it. Let's talk about values just for a minute. On this question, mine's pretty basic. I believe it's just wrong that anyone in our country should be out there sleeping on the streets. I just think it's wrong. I've always thought it's wrong. I believe it is still wrong. I also believe we can do something to make it right. Because if we accept that it's kind of natural that people don't have a place to call home, I believe we demean ourselves as human beings. Not only do we demean ourselves, we also demean our country, because we Australians are better than that. That's who we are. We're better than that. We have a deep ingrained sense of fairness. So when we walk the streets of countries around the world, why do we recoil when we see people sleeping in homeless desperation? Because we don't think it's right. Why do we doubly recoil when we see that happening in the streets of Australia? Because we trebly don't think that's right. And this is actually a good voice of our conscience speaking to our most deep humanity. So if it follows that we agree that it's wrong, the next question for us all as a community and it's you who elect the governments of our country, then it is a question of priorities. What are we going to do about it? As a government, I'm proud of the fact that when we were elected at the end of 2007, the first white paper we commissioned as a government was on homelessness. It was entitled, the green paper was entitled A Place to Call Home. The white paper was entitled The Road Home. Therefore, we decided that it was time to act because too much had been said before and too little had been done before. We're proud of the fact that since then, the Australian government has now not just invested in, but built close on 20,000 new units of social housing across Australia. We're proud of the fact that we have been in the business of repairing 80,000 units of social housing across Australia. We're proud of the fact that through the National Rental Affordability Scheme, we are in the business of making 50,000 units of housing available to people who would otherwise struggle to get into the housing market at all. And through our $500 million investment in the Housing Affordability Fund, to also participate in making new housing developments accessible for folk who otherwise would find it very hard to have their own home. And for services like MICA and for services like Common Ground, the Australian Government is supporting 180 new housing and homelessness services like you across Australia. My overall point is this. This represents significant new capacity. And therefore, while the truth is we have not solved homelessness, as the Minister said before, our ambition is to halve homelessness by 2020. The truth is we are making a significant difference. That is the truth. And all those additional units of social and supported housing which exist across the country are evidence of that. Which brings us to the third point I mentioned. Getting your values clear in your head, setting your priorities. Is it worthy of the resources of the taxpayer to invest in? Yes. Then what are you going to do about it? And what gives me such delight and joy today is to be sitting here in this place in South Brisbane, in my own community, and seeing the fruits of all those labours by so many people over such a long period of time. I first heard about Common Ground from my wife, Therese. She is the national patron of Common Ground today and has been since 2008. She extends her apologies for not being here today. She came back from New York one day and said, I've met this terrific mob called Common Ground and this is what they do. And Therese, representing not just the beauty but also the talent of our family, then said to me, with all the business acumen of which she is well known, well capable and well credentialed, said, you know, Kevin, it works. Do something about it. And being an obedient Queenslander, when we hear a word from authority, we immediately sort of tug the forelock and off we go, don't we? Therese also, when I was Prime Minister, I remember her sitting down with representatives of the national building industry around the dining table at Kirribilli in the Lodge, one objective, and that is to agree nationally a national voluntary code for disability access for the residential housing sector of this country. So I'm married to a formidable woman, and she had a formidable vision about what Common Ground could do in the country, and she's worked with so many of you on that. And it's not just here. This investment of some $46 million is part of a $130 million investment nationwide, so we now have Common Ground facilities in Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne and Adelaide, and the total capacity that provides in inner city areas to help bring people physically off the street into a secure place that they can call home is somewhere now close to 400 units of inner city secure accommodation. And for those of you who work in this sector, know that that is a big difference from where we've been before. So I'm proud of this achievement. And I'm delighted when I see the faces of the folks who now live here. I am delighted. That's right, bloke pointing to himself up the front here. Having been here 2 or 3 times before the opening, it's been my privilege to sit down and have a yak about where people have been. And some of the stories are pretty rough, and some of them are really tough. But the important thing is that they've made it. And here we're able to enhance the dignity which they have found in their own lives, and to help and support in their own journey to complete resilience. I thank the Minister for his presence today. I thank also the fact that we've had this partnership with the state government, $46 million worth of federal money, $1.9 million worth of state money. I thank Micah Services, I thank Common Ground, and could I conclude by thanking our good friends from GrowCon. Bruce mentioned this before. It is no small thing that a company like GrowCon, both here and in Sydney and in Melbourne, constructed all these projects at cost, no profit. Put your hands together for these folks. Because together we have made a difference. I thank you very much.
I presume you put one of these levers. There we go. I'll stand between you two.
The building surpasses all your expectations. It's so beautifully built, it's just superb and beautifully designed, and the rooftop garden, the veggie patch. My unit is just really superbly built and beautiful. And I'm on the 11th floor with panoramic views of the city, so it really is fantastic.
Convenience jumped into mind just then, and you know, all the goodies in there, they're just there. You know, brand new this, brand new that, so that's a bit of a treat. And accessibility, I can get around quite easily. I've walked into the city and back quite easily this morning, so those sorts of things, yeah.
It's fantastic. I mean, this Brisbane building, I know, has been the culmination of like a number of years' work making it happen here. It's a fantastic building. It's the largest one so far in Australia. 146 people are able to be housed in such a fantastic view. The river, the art, it's fantastic. I mean, this Brisbane building, I know, has been the culmination of like a number of years' work making it happen here. It's a fantastic building. It's the largest one so far in Australia.
Well, GrowCon's been the design and construct contractor for the building. It's been a real privilege to be involved in it. It's something that we wanted to do at cost. For a builder and developer, we have that expertise, and we thought we could make a difference here and in Melbourne and in Sydney, where we've done the same thing, getting these buildings off the ground. And well, GrowCon's been...
I think now that the building is in the hand of the community partners, and it's more than a building, it's the service, because Common Ground's much more than just a building. So I think when we handed over the building and you saw staff starting to move in and the concierge downstairs, it became really, that was the time when you start to see it moving away from a government project into a housing initiative that's going to be managed. So I think it's truly in the hands of Common Ground Queensland and Micah Projects now. They've already shaped it by their influence over design and their commitment, you know, to helping the design be the best it could be. Now I think they've got their role in terms of supporting tenants, but also I think in working with the community and business partners so that the vision that's been realised here can actually be extended into... I think now that the building is...
Well, look, I think we've learned it's not always easy sailing, you know. People who have spent many years being chronically homeless often come, not always, but often come with some significant disabilities and vulnerabilities. And so the support is really the crucial bit. And that's not always easy. But certainly I think we've seen in Adelaide, Melbourne, starting to see in Hobart, and we've seen over the last year in Sydney that, you know, people are sustaining their tenancies, and people who have been homeless for many years are still housed, and it's fantastic. It's just a good news story.
Well, I lived in private rental, and because I really had some financial difficulty affording private rental, so I really hit the wall. My story is that I would be at great risk of being homeless myself, which I never thought would happen to me. And then, of course, I got recommended to apply for common ground, and the rest is history. So I'm very, very blessed that I was at risk on a very, very low income. And very low income people can't afford private rental anymore. So it's quite an issue for people. And I'm one of the lucky ones who found my place, you know, in an amazing social housing complex. Very lucky.
Look, as far as the Australian Common Ground Alliance is concerned, we really want to congratulate GrowCon. Their commitment to common grounds across Australia has been magnificent. And the fact that they have built Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane at cost has been a significant savings to government. And I think they really understand corporate social responsibility. And the fact that, you know, we need to house, we do not need to have chronic homelessness in Australia. There's absolutely no need for it. And the only way we can end it is with housing.
I thought I might just recap very briefly how we went through this project. I actually started on board in May 2010 and we had a schematic design with a 13-storey building. By June there was talk of a basement, and whilst Gambarrows was demolished and remediation of the site took place, the building, and especially the ground floor, was redesigned to accommodate the basement. And I think this just typified the whole design process and the desire by the stakeholder group, which was Micah, Common Ground, Project Services, my compatriot Cameron Hemming there, who I think deserves a thank you for all his support and direction through the process. And the design was constantly reviewed to make sure the end product was the best possible design for the tenants. So we wanted to provide the best building with the budget available. I'd also like to thank the consultant team and especially our architects, Justin Morgan from Nettleton Tribe and his team, for their dedication during this whole process and the design. I thought I might just recap very briefly. Very much, Kirsten. And I'd like to now introduce Karen Walsh. I think it's worth just saying she was one of the driving forces behind bringing the Common Ground concept to Queensland and probably encouraging the government to spend the money. So thank you very much, Karen, for that.
There are many driving forces and everybody took their role, which was fantastic. There's a lot of lip service done to private-public partnerships, and I think that it's really a pity that the contractor's contribution and GrowCon's contribution can't be sort of more fully on display, because it's a new thing for Queensland. And in fact, I remember the very early days of suggesting this partnership in order to build Brisbane Common Ground. People didn't believe that a company would do it. But GrowCon has done it, and with your help, and we're really grateful for the finishing product. I mean, the design obviously has really worked, Justin, and people have constantly commented on the features of the building that have made it different, and from other places they've lived, or for some people who have come directly from the street, they can't believe it. One tenant called it heaven on a stick. Someone was telling me the viewing of the screens when they go through, that there was just this very sort of moving image of a young woman who's here, who's only 25, has lived on the streets for many years, has had a lot of adversity, has often considered herself as a burden to her family. She's Indigenous, and there was this lovely shot of her and her two sisters and their children running around the pool room playing, and it was sort of like the opposite of that. Her family can come here and experience something different and a respite from their lives, rather than her having to constantly be what she perceives as being a burden on theirs. The Indigenous people that have already become tenants love it, and there was a lot of discussion in many times about whether Indigenous people would like a high density building, but I think it's because of where it's located. People love the urban sounds. They're the sounds they're similar to when they have slept rough. Actually on this site, people lived here on the vacant half of the Gambaro, where Gambaro's were the fish markets. And you know, it's just that sort of part of their life, and they've watched it. I'm surprised actually how many people have watched the building go up and have commented on, I wanted to live here. Like, you know, you don't always know that people on the street are taking such a keen interest in it, and for those who are going to live here, it's fantastic. I mean, we just love going into the units and nostalgically thinking about the design meetings where the broom cupboards went in and the tiles went to the roof, and all of those things that you contributed by doing it at the discount price, because we know that those things make an enormous difference to people being able to maintain the unit and to live in it. And for some people, that is a real challenge. We can take for granted what it takes to sweep a floor, but if you've got a brain injury, how, you know, not having carpets and having floor that's easy to sweep, and the decks, the balconies people really love. And the kitchen is the other one that is really nostalgic, because we went from 2 domestic kitchens to a kitchen that would be able to cope with you know, doing functions in this room, having the cold room, having the dishwasher. I'd just like from Micah, and I'm on the board of Common Ground Queensland, for both organisations, really thank you. And really thank GrowCon for, you've not only built a great building and, you know, got people engaged in the project, but you've been a tremendous, generous supporter of Micah since you've met us. Supporting the Moonlight Magic Dance, supporting other things. We've also had over 20,000 sort of given in kind or in donations for people's welcome packs, so that their beds can be made, the saucepans can be in the cupboard, the cutlery. So, and they're not expensive. They're just things to make people feel they can give this a start. They don't have to save up every fortnight to have stuff to use the kitchen with. And so the community support, plus, you know, your contribution. And whenever we talk about, people said, someone said to me, what does that cost mean? And I think GrowCon should be singing their praises about the percentage of profit they didn't take. I think you're very humble in not doing that, as well as the generous contribution that you made to getting contractors and yourselves, just making the building such a wonderful place for people to call home. So on behalf of both Micah and Common Ground Queensland, I'd like to thank you all. And today the lunch has also been prepared by some tenants with Phyllis, and hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming here today to celebrate what is effectively the contribution that you have made to this project and to the fabric of Brisbane. We had an event this morning with state and federal government representation, and we pointed out that the project's been made possible here for a range of things that happen at a partnership level on the project, but including the contribution that each of you and your organisations have very generously made. The concept of contributing to a good cause on an at-cost basis, we think if there is one demonstration that that works, this building is a piece of that story. And certainly without that support, GrowCon would not have been able to deliver the project and the high quality outcome that has been achieved here without it. We wanted to have a small recognition event today to thank you and your organisations for the contribution that you've made, but also hopefully providing an opportunity for each of you to reflect on the importance of what you have done.